What could possibilities are exist for Canadians to expect, especially in the Middle East? Israel is on a mission, and Bibi mentioned that he wants to get rid of Hamas no matter what. But then you have a deal with Saudi, which has been taken off because they want to go back to the 1967 resolution. Is there an end to the war that coming in the next 2 years?
Yeah, okay. So my opinion on this is the war is not going to end at least until the next US election, as both Democrats and Republicans have widely different foreign policy philosophies. And I would argue, if you look at the entire context of what Joe Biden is doing, not only is he not effective for American interests or Israeli interests, right? He's not in Israel's interest. What he's doing is in American interest. He has not provided the Israelis with a viable win condition. And this is something not a lot of people will talk about when it comes to Israel. It's like, okay, what's a viable win for the Israelis? Like the Israelis need to destroy Hamas and make sure that, like, it's yes, bring the hostages home, but the more important war aim long term is making sure October 7th doesn't happen again. Right. And how do you get it to a situation where that doesn't happen again? And the Americans say, oh, we have to make a Palestinian state right now. So reward them for the terrorism. There can't be any territorial losses. And even you have Anthony Blinken running around trying to give Hezbollah a part of the Golan Heights, which is never even part of Lebanon. So the Israelis are no boss. So for them, they're not saying this publicly, but I assume there's an internal calculus going, all right, in order to win this war, we're going to need a different a Republican in office or something, or we're going to have to do this with the Democrats, right? So Israel either have to win the war completely solo and just dictate to the world its terms, or get a more viable U.S. administration in that's actually going to sort of assert itself in the Middle East and counter the Islamic Republic of Iran, because the IRGC, which is the Islamic Revolutionary Guard Corps, like their international terrorist syndicate, is openly at war with Israel. And now, like, you can say, oh, the war is just in Gaza, but missiles have been flying in from Lebanon the entire time. Since October 7th, even before October 9th and Israel went into Gaza, Hezbollah started launching missiles at Israel. So all this talk of, oh, there's fear of a wider war escalating in Lebanon. Well, it's already there. Like, we can not call it a war and pretend it's not happening, but Hezbollah is firing missiles into Israel and Israel's firing missiles back at Hezbollah. So call that what you want to call it. You can call it a regional escalation of a kinetic, they're at war, right? Both sides are fundamentally different, and Hezbollah is an existential threat for Israel. I think all this being said, I think the Israelis would be wise to sort of keep operations, let's say in Gaza, and there might get to a status quo and equilibrium in the fighting with Hamas, and like play a slow game of whack-a-mole going forward to get them into the US election, see if they can get a Republican government, and then actually try and get some sort of viable peace deal and solution that might have some lasting benefit. But I don't see that happening under Joe Biden. The Canadians would continue this sort of nonsense policy, this magical thinking, the same thing. I think this sort of failed Biden thought. I mean, the liberals are very, 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 very capitulatory to the IRGC. Personally, I have a friend who was likely murdered by one of them in Toronto, and again, the Canadian government didn't care too much about Iranian dissidents. Again, this is a contrast to what we talked about with Stephen Harper, who shut down the embassy because of stuff like this happening. So expect the Liberal government to continue its ideological nonsense. And if Trump gets back in, and I think we go back to 2016 to 2020, where we're oppositional antagonistic, and we continue to think the world's a magical place, and then we have to wait for a conservative government to get us back to a reality-based foreign policy.